I'm going to talk to you about how to birth power from pain, because pain is one thing that we all go through. We all go through it as human beings. We all go through it as individuals. We all go through it as believers. And it's almost as though knowing the Lord and loving the Lord does not make you immune from the pains and the battles of life. So the question is, how do you convert it into strength? How do you take off this spirit of heaviness and put on this garment of praise? What is the spiritual conversion and translation that happens? I'm going to tell you a story about a guy. His name is Mephibosheth. And Mephibosheth, you find him in the Bible, in the book of Kings. And he was the son of, the grandson of King Saul and the son of Jonathan. And we all know Jonathan and David, their story. And how Mephibosheth was Jonathan's son. But Mephibosheth found himself in a place called Lo-debar. And the word Lo-debar literally means no fertilization, no vegetation, no goodness, no joy, all of those things. Now Mephibosheth found himself in Lo-debar, but the most critical thing about Mephibosheth is that Mephibosheth was lame on both feet, and he got into this condition by no fault of his. While he was a child, his nurse, who was taking care of him, tried to escape during a war, and while she was running with him, she dropped Mephibosheth, and Mephibosheth became lame on both feet. Now, in my book From Here to There, I talk about the Mephibosheth syndrome, and believe me, that is one chapter you really want to read, because in that book I talk about how being in a condition like Mephibosheth and being in Lo-debar sometimes isn't necessarily because of something you did wrong. Sometimes it's because of the circumstances of life and the fact that people were trying to help you to get to the next level in life, but in the process you got dropped, in the process you got wounded, in the process you got injured, and many people are stuck in Lo-debar because of that. Now, Lo-debar isn't your natural reality. You're brought into it during a difficult season, and because of the lameness of Mephibosheth's feet, he was forced to depend on people for help. Imagine going from being a prince who had the liberty of running around the palace and exploring all that there was, a prince who had such great promise over his life, and just by being born royalty, he knew that for the rest of his life he was going to be subjected to wealth and increase. And being in a situation like this, I believe there are many people like that today. There are many people who struggle, and the struggles you're going through is by no means a reflection of how you were brought up or the life that you once have, and you're thinking to yourself, how do I break out of Lo-debar? So marriages are in Lo-debar, but the truth is that God has got a way for you, and I highlight this a lot in From Here to There. But today I just want to say real quickly to you how to identify Lo-debar places, people, systems, basically people who are supposed to nurture and groom you but end up hurting you, or that which makes you transition from helpers into becoming those who have to just help you manage life. Sometimes even those who should care for us will wound us unintentionally. Sometimes they will break us. It could be your pastors, it could be your rulers, your leaders, it could even be those who lead your nation. And, many people are going through difficulty today because those who were ahead of them had disappointed them. And one thing I want you to be careful about if you're really going to birth power from your pain is that you don't want to enthrone your pain to the point where you are unable to see the benefit it could have brought for you, because many times we put pain where it's not supposed to be. We give it some kind of weight and some kind of honor that it's not meant to have, and because of that we end up being unable to break the chains, and we end up being unable to enter into who the Lord has called us to be, because we stagnate and we are stuck. Now there are people who were meant to help us that leave us, and sometimes you have to recognize that they do so not because they want to disappoint us, but because they are also limited. The same way there are places and systems that had the intention of strengthening and increasing us, and initially they did, but after a while it's either you grow bigger than the place, or the place begins to fail in its responsibility, in the sense that it no more upholds its integrity of purpose, which was to strengthen, nurture, and build you up, or people change. It could be any of these things that make it that makes them move from caretakers to pain bringers. But whatever the case may be, you must understand that all of this has got an effect on you, and it has got an effect on your ability to transition into the new day. Because one of the things that Mephibosheth said when David came for him was, "Why are you coming to help me? I'm not worth anything more than a dead dog." And this is what many people say when God is like, "Hey, it's time to rise up, it's time to go into the new business." You're like, "No, I'm not worth anything more than to just be here and languish in pain and lack." But you have to recognize that being in a Lo-Debar situation has the capacity to affect your future possibilities. So in as much as God understands and the world understands that you are limited, your leg is broken and all of that, but there are some seats that you will never get to sit on. People may understand your pain and brokenness, but it never moves them enough to promote you. So you have to recognize that it becomes your responsibility to be promoted so that you can come into everything that God has called you to come into. So it is time to let go, because it has held you bound for so long. It is time to deal with it. And as long as you're still holding on to this experience and you're still in this place of Lo-Debar, it becomes impossible for you to move to Jerusalem. It becomes impossible for you to sit with kings, which was your predestined position from the beginning. Now for some people, you've made the transition to the king's table by some kind of miraculous intervention of God. You're wearing the royal garment, you're eating from the king's table, but you keep looking at your feet. You keep looking at your brokenness, you keep looking at your pain, you keep looking at your shame. And the truth is, the people on the table may no longer notice your feet, because you have been received by God and you've been received by the King. But you are the one that reminds them you have a limitation, because you consistently revisit it. So I want to tell you today, if you are listening to me, to make sure that when the Lord lifts you up, stop telling stories about how broken you are, how limited you are, because the truth is, when the glory of God rises upon you, it covers a lot of limitations and brokenness that you have. People don't see it. Don't draw their attention to what they cannot see. Now, you have to recognize that, all of this has got a role in your life. The day that the king sends for you, you must be quick to receive the invitation of the king, not quick to tell the king about your inadequacies. Because it's not every day that the king comes by your village, your town, your house, your business, your ministry, and I'm talking about both the spiritual king and the kings of this world, because many people have lost opportunities simply because they kept highlighting things that they were supposed to overlook. And there's something about the glory of a king that makes the weaknesses and the inadequacies of men look really, really small. You must recognize when a king is standing before you. You must recognize when a king is sitting before you. And you must be ready to have kingly conversations, as opposed to defining yourself by your outward limitations. So it is not necessarily about feet or no feet. You may not have physical legs, but does your mind have feet? Does your heart have feet? Does your spirit have feet? Do you have that innate ability to think about the future, to explore worlds unknown? Do you think like a creative person? You may not have physical feet, but what are you saying to the king that will make him determine if you are worthy of his table? So the Mephibosheth syndrome simply makes it hard for people to transition into the things the Lord has got for them and allocated for them, because they are more focused on what they don't have. So you really need to read from here to there and understand the Mephibosheth syndrome, because there are some transitions that will benefit not just you, but the next generation. And the thing about transition is that the Lord will inspire the people He has sent to you for that reason of you making the next move, but you must obey to go with the flow. So the moment God put it in the heart of David, it was now in Mephibosheth's hand. So the question is, will you respond to the king? The question is, will you make the move? The question is, would you dare to take up that new task? Would you dare to engage the job? Would you have the audacity of hope to take the leap? Or would you sit back and say to yourself, I'm not worthy of it all? Because the king doesn't pass by your house every day. You must recognize that. In the book From Here to There, I talk about how to handle, opportunities in Lo Debar. How to handle opportunities in Lo Debar. How do you handle the shift when your leg is broken? When you are in a place where there is no fertility, and you see the word Lo Debar, it comes from the root word of it all is the word debar, and debar is the root word to speak. So Lo Debar literally means a place where the voice of God does not exist, where the voice of God is not heard. So the question is, how do you handle it when you can't hear God's voice? Mephibosheth has a rich history. Mephibosheth, like Joseph, could have spent his years remembering the things he knew, he learned in the king's palace, and hold on to that, because there's always a Jonathan on the inside of you. As long as you are the king's seed, there are deposits inside of you that have the potential to grow and to spring forth. And even though you are in Lo Debar, yet you can make decisions like a king's seed. Joseph, the Bible never recorded that God said to Joseph. We didn't hear it throughout the time he was in Egypt. But we see Joseph acting with integrity. The integrity of the dreams he had. The integrity of the things that Jacob said to him. So he might have been far from home, far from the reality he once had. But he said to Potiphar's wife, he says, I cannot do this thing before God. So even though we don't hear that God was speaking to him, he was ever conscious of the God that he knew. So one of the ways to handle Lo Debar is that you must always remember where you have come from. You must always remember the seed that is on the inside of you. You must always remember what you carry. So today, God is calling us to sit at a different table. Not David's table, but he's calling us to sit at Jesus' table. And at the table of Jesus are endless possibilities, promises that have been made to you by God himself. So I'm wondering, have you been accepting the invitation of the King? Have you been accepting the invitation to come into what God will have for you? So if you're going to break out of Lo Debar, if you're going to break out of the place where it feels like you're in darkness, stagnation, no vegetation, no voice, one of the first things you want to do is remember. Remember where you have come from. Remember the dreams you once had. Remember the promises that were spoken to you. Remember the prophecies that were given to you. Remember. Then number 2, you want to remember whose seed you are. You are Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, the son of the first king of Israel, Saul. There is royalty flowing through your bloodline. Remember whose seed you are. Then number 3, wait with readiness, knowing that the king is going to pass by your house soon. And when he does, you are prepared with the right words and with the right posture to engage the opportunity he's giving to you. Number 4, you may leave Lo Debar, but Lo Debar may still be in you. Always remember this. So you must make a conscious effort for the rest of your life to keep breaking out of the culture and the systems of Lo Debar by which you lived and endured and merely survived in those past years. Number 5, stop looking at your feet. Stop looking at the lameness. Stop looking at the brokenness. Remember, you may not have physical feet, but you've got feet on the inside of you. Feet in your spirit, feet in your soul, feet as long as you engage with the word of the Lord. As you embrace his principles, I believe that God will help you break out of any Lo Debar situation you may be in. Like I said, I explained this a lot deeper in the book From Here to There. And in that book, I said a lot of principles that is very quick to use, very handy, steps that you can take. And the reason why is because I believe that many of us are not as unsuccessful as we think we are. We just don't know how to transition into the next level of success. So I would like you to be part of this journey of liberty and growth that I have experienced.